Because we're a federation by design and not an association, we have to be respectful of the 51 member associations, and really 52 if you count the Iowa Girls Union. So our stance is basically we need to support our state associations, and none of us, the NFHS included, are kind of stiff-arming the idea that students should be able to benefit from their name, image, and likeness. We all should. We all own our own name, image, and likeness.
Mm-hmm.
And as we all know, kids are tremendous influencers in more capacities than I can imagine, but they're good at it, and they deserve to be able to take advantage of that. Where we all land firm, NFHS, along with our member associations, is that should students in high school pursue NIL deals, we do not support that they are allowed to engage in professional contracts while wearing the jersey of the school or the uniform of the school. They do not own that. So we right now are very firm in our communications and in our efforts in our respective states with our legislatures that we support students being able to earn money, if you will, but not while they're representing the school that they attend. What we're seeing in terms of changes in each of our states that have made decisions around NIL acceptance, if you will, is that it's strategic. And we think it's smart because state associations had language about amateurism traditionally in their eligibility languages and protecting amateur experiences. What gets fuzzy is where is NIL, which kids should be able to do. They own their NIL, but still be amateurs.
Mm-hmm.
So the states that have created eligibility language around NIL opportunities really are trying to carve out the separation between remaining an amateur in true form and also being able to benefit from NIL opportunities. So for state associations to do that proactively does a couple things. It clarifies the differences here. And you can still do NIL, but also be an amateur playing for your high school. It also gets out in front of legislatures or individual legislators that might have an interest in passing a law first. If you don't do it, we're going to do it for you kind of thing. So that's the second benefit. And third, it helps to clarify for students and families themselves that it's okay to pursue NIL, but we're going to be clear, you can't do it while representing your member school where you attend. Yeah, so a few years ago, I would say the questions were a little bit more urgent and common. We don't get as many questions anymore because I think states are learning from one another what somebody has done and what's worked, maybe what's been a challenge. And that's a lot. The peer-to-peer learning in our federation is common. The questions do come up about asking for assistance with legal clarification. Do we as a state association, can we allow NIL, but do we really have a leg to stand on when it comes to saying you can do it, but you can't wear our school jersey when you do it? So they've really looked for potential pitfalls in their efforts to truly protect amateur sports, at least for the kids wearing the high school jersey. So the questions have been more around legal pitfalls, trying to be proactive in protecting amateurism. They want to know what the data is and are those few high school student athletes earning big contracts? Are they from member schools or are they from some of the more sport-related private schools? We know there are many private schools out there with reputations as being sort of sport academies. They're not necessarily members of our state association. So, and then they want to know about what's going on with some of the conglomerates out there that are working outside of the school space with trying to court students and families outside of the school environment. So they want to know what the trends are with some of those behaviors, who are the big names out there, what are some of the shady practices that are going on. So we get questions around those things still. Groups of agents that might become collectives, they're called. Sometimes the agencies are combining to be sort of conglomerates. And sometimes we're even seeing now the rise of lawyers that are pulling together in groups to specifically entice student athletes into NIL deals. And one of those parameters in some of those deals is that collection of lawyers will then get a cut. And that's how it works. That's how collectives work. They go out and identify potential NIL talent. They introduce themselves through any number of capacities to the kids and their families, generally through social media outreach. And then in their introduction, they begin their sell. This is who we are. This is what we this is who we can connect you with. They go sometimes as far as saying we can promise you this, but they're just shy of promise, if not saying promise, and then say, here's a contract model that would look like this. They tend to infuse their protections in their courtship language. And then what we've seen is that kids have been hoodwinked. They've actually signed deals, their family has relocated, and then everything has fallen through. Or the kids, perhaps they've gotten injured, or now that's fallen through, and there weren't any sort of insurance protections to ride out a contract. We've seen situations where they've been sort of assured that they would have entrance into a particular university, which had to be a certain sponsor university, and then that's fallen through. Or they've wanted to go to another university and been told, no, you can't. The number of high school athletes in those situations is far fewer than collegiate, but still, any bad situation is too many. So probably to no one's surprise, the states of California primarily and New York, they've had NIL concerns for a long, long time because they have a lot of actors. So they have child actors. Certainly in the LA, Hollywood area, certainly New York City. They tend to lead the way. So right out of the gate, when NIL became a big deal for states in terms of language in their eligibility and their bylaws and regs, we all looked at California. And Ron Nichetti, who's the exec out there, and actually our board president right now, he said, we've been doing this for a long time in California. Protections for kids in general, not specific to sport, but just protections for kids entering into contracts. And what do we have to pay attention to? How do we protect them? And so they had some experience with child contracts, professional contracts. And that's helped them lead the way in terms of how they deal with NIL issues in interscholastic sport. And New York has done the same thing for years. And now, as to your point, we've got probably 42 states with language in the regulations and bylaws pertinent to NIL. The schools almost have to be in a role to do something about this, right? So I would say we encourage schools to educate, but not encourage. And there's a fine line there. I think schools have to be very cautious about anything that they say to their students and families that might sound like encouragement to pursue NIL deals. However, they're there, and depending on the school and the nature of the talent in the school, the level of education for students and parents has to be a proactive lens-based approach. So ADs and school administrators need to work with their coaches and make sure that they're all on the same page in case parents approach the coach to say, hey, can you help me get my kid a deal? Or where's the best place to go to get my kid a deal? We have to make sure our coaches are in lockstep with how to handle responses to those questions. We have to make sure that our schools are armed with the information as best as we can provide it. And then we have to make sure that administrators are armed with that information so that they can be in a supportive role for ADs and coaches. And sometimes there's a concerning gap in connectivity between an AD and a school administrator. School administrators used to be former coaches and ADs decades ago, and now they're coming in from curricular backgrounds or some other place. and not necessarily athletics. So we have to work really hard to keep principals informed, ADs informed, and then give them the tools to work with their coaches to say, here are some resources that we have to be in alignment here. ADs need to work with coaches. What's the messaging here? What can we do? What should we not do? So it's a delicate journey to walk.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that schools have to be very careful about not explicitly encouraging student athletes to go chase down NIL deals.
Mm-hmm.
The NFHS and our member state associations, our AD association, we kind of feel like we're the last ones on the hill of education-based experiences and amateurism. One of the things I often say is that education-based activities have gone from being formative in nature to performative. And that paradigm shift is powerful. When people out there in the general public, even within our communities of coaches, ADs, student athletes, and families, when they start to look at competitive success versus the benefits of growth that happen uniquely through high school sports and activities that really don't happen in that way anywhere else, and all the life lessons there, when they start to value the winning and losing and all this, the noise that we see in social media, the bad behavior, the officials, the literal harm to officials, harm to one another, shooting guns in the stands at high school events. We're losing our way here. So one of the campaigns we're rolling out this year, a new one, is called Protect the Purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working with NASO, our officials, working with the NIAAA, working with all sorts of AAU. In fact, they love our Protect the Purpose. They want to protect the purpose too.
Sure, yeah.
So we really are starting to align with other groups around a campaign that's going to be clear, maybe a little edgy, but we've got to make sure that the reason high school activities exist is something that we're tethered to, our mission and values around this stuff, because NIL is a distraction. The NCAA transfer situation is a distraction. Our state associations now, trying to be proactive again, are starting to say, well, we'll give you one in the course of your high school career, just to keep legislators away from doing it to them. So there's a lot of noise, and we have to kind of lock arms and stack hands to make sure our messaging around why we're different is clear. And people, we've got to get them back into alignment with why we do what we do.